Imagine plucking a guitar string. You hear that sharp, beautiful note, right? But then, after just a few seconds, the sound fades. The string goes completely still. Why doesn't it just keep vibrating forever?
Or think about being at a playground. You give a kid a huge push on a swing, and then you just step back. They don't keep swinging back and forth at that exact same height for the rest of the day. Eventually, the swing always comes to a complete dead halt. Why is that? Well, the answer to both of these everyday scenarios comes down to a fundamental physics concept: energy loss. Simply put, things stop moving because something else is literally stealing their energy. So, by the end of this explainer, you're going to deeply understand the mechanics behind this energy loss. We'll break down the exact formula that governs it and show you how to apply it to real, practical physics problems. We are definitely not just memorizing equations today. You're going to walk away seeing the physical world totally differently. Okay, let's get into it. That energy thief we were just talking about? In physics, we call it damping. Damping is just the removal of mechanical energy from a system by what we call non-conservative forces. Think of friction rubbing against moving parts, or air resistance pushing against that kid on the swing. These forces, they act exactly like a tax, right? They're constantly taking energy out of our moving system and usually converting it into thermal energy, which is just heat. Honestly, completely undamped motion in the real world is incredibly rare just because friction is absolutely everywhere.
Now let's look at the actual math behind this energy tax. The core formula states that the work done by these non-conservative forces, which we write out as W subscript NC, is exactly equal to the change in the system's kinetic energy plus its potential energy. And because this damping force is actively removing energy, that work value is always going to be negative. The system's total mechanical energy is literally shrinking as time goes on.
But wait, here's where it gets really fascinating. What happens if we don't just have a tiny bit of friction, but we actively, intentionally increase the amount of damping in a system? Like, how does the system behave when it's fighting harder and harder against that energy loss? Well, the answer actually breaks down into three very distinct categories. Let's look at the first one. Category number one is what we call an underdamped system. This is your classic playground swing. The system really wants to go back to its resting state, its equilibrium, but it still has enough energy to completely overshoot it. So it bounces right past zero, goes out the other side, comes back, and it crosses that equilibrium line multiple times. Its amplitude gradually shrinks smaller and smaller until it finally stops. Now, I want you to contrast that with our second category, an overdamped system. Imagine taking that same playground swing, but moving it into a giant pool of thick molasses. If you pull it back and let go now, it doesn't bounce. It doesn't oscillate at all. It just sluggishly, painfully crawls its way back toward its resting position, taking a super long time to finally get there. And that brings us to the Goldilocks zone, the third category, critical damping. This is the absolute perfect middle ground. In a critically damped system, the object returns to equilibrium as fast as physically possible without bouncing back and forth. It essentially just snaps right to zero and it stays there. No overshoot. Let's actually directly contrast these overdamped and critically damped states, just to make it a bit easier to visualize. Think about stepping onto one of those classic mechanical bathroom scales. Now, if that scale was underdamped, the needle would rapidly bounce past your weight back and forth, and you'd just be standing there waiting to read the number. If it was overdamped, the needle would creep up so slowly you might literally fall asleep before it reached your weight. But a really good scale, that's critically damped. The needle sweeps up and stops perfectly on your exact weight as fast as possible with absolutely zero lingering bounces. And this perfectly illustrates why engineers care so much about controlling damping. Think about the shock absorbers on your car. Imagine hitting a pothole, and your car's suspension was heavily underdamped. You would be bouncing up and down dramatically for a full mile down the highway. Obviously, that's incredibly dangerous. So we specifically design car suspensions to be critically damped or maybe slightly overdamped so the car absorbs the bump and immediately levels out. We're purposely using physics to force the vehicle to stop oscillating. Okay, so understanding the underlying concept is absolutely crucial, but right about now, you might be asking, all right, I get the theory, but how do we actually calculate this energy loss in a real testable physics problem? Well, let's walk through an integrated scenario together so you can see exactly how this works. Here is our setup. We have a 0.2 kilogram mass, and it's attached to a spring lying horizontally on a table. The spring has a stiffness constant, or K value, of 50 newtons per meter. Now, we pull the mass back exactly 0.1 meters, and we release it from rest. But here's the catch. the table is not frictionless. We're dealing with a surface friction coefficient of 0.08. So what we want to know is, what is the total distance this block will travel, bouncing back and forth, before friction completely drains its energy and brings it to a dead stop?
Let's break down the logic to solve this step by step. First up, we need to identify that our system starts with a specific amount of elastic potential energy stored up in that stretch spring. Second, we know that as the block slides, friction is doing non-conservative work on it. Remember our formula? That's negative force times distance. Third, we recognize that the block is going to finally stop moving completely when the weakening spring force is perfectly balanced out by the friction. So by setting the work done by friction equal to the total energy removed from the system, we can use algebra to solve for our one unknown variable, the total distance traveled, which we'll call d.
When we actually plug our specific mass, our friction coefficient, and our spring constant right into that algebraic relationship, it reveals the answer. The total distance the block travels is 1.59 meters. To put that into perspective, because it started with a displacement of just 0.1 meters, that means it's going to bounce back and forth nearly 16 times. It loses just a little bit of energy with every single scrape against the table before it completely surrenders to friction.
But wait, hold on a second. This next part is a really common point of confusion for students, and it's absolutely essential to grasp. When that block finally does stop after moving that full 1.59 meters back and forth, does it stop perfectly at dead center, like right at that zero equilibrium point?
The answer is actually no. It almost always stops slightly off-center. But why? Well, as the block's bounces get smaller and smaller, the spring itself is getting stretched less and less, which means its restoring force is getting significantly weaker. Eventually, that spring force gets so incredibly weak that it simply can't overcome the static friction holding the block to the table. Static friction acts exactly like a trap here, grabbing the block and freezing it in place just slightly before it can ever make it back to absolute zero.
All right, before we wrap up, let's do a quick summary of the key takeaways so you can really lock this into memory. First, non-conservative forces, like friction or air resistance, pull energy out of a system, which causes damping. If a system bounces past equilibrium, we know it's underdamped. If it crawls back super slowly without any bouncing, it's overdamped. And if it snaps back to zero as fast as physically possible, that's critically damped. And remember, engineers rely on these exact principles every single day to design everything from comfortable car rides to accurate bathroom skills.
But all of this leaves us with one final, really provocative question. We know exactly how systems lose energy now, but what happens if we fight back? Like, what happens if we don't let the system stop, but instead we continuously push it, adding energy back in at exactly the right physical moment? Well, it turns out that phenomenon can literally tear steel bridges apart and shatter solid glass. And that is exactly what we are going to explore in our next explainer on forced oscillations and